In this primary election, you're running against several other contenders. Why should voters choose you?
Well, I think the primary is about who can do the best job in the general, who can do the best job once they get this job. I think that's what voters have to decide. I think they are going to choose me. I hope they choose me. I'm running because I do think we're in an important fight for the future of the country. It's not a time when you want to make a decision that results in the election of somebody you don't agree with on anything, nor is it a time when you want to would send somebody to this fight who doesn't understand how big the fight is. So I've done over 550 campaign events in every county of the state. I've listened as much as I've talked. I think what I'm hearing is that Missourians understand how big a moment this is, and that's why they're rallying to our campaign.
List what you believe are the three most significant issues facing Missouri. How would you address these issues, and what would the financial and non-financial costs of your actions be?
Well, Missouri is right in the center of these issues that the national Democrat leaders have drug onto the scene. Clearly the biggest issue is where are the private sector jobs. The second biggest issue is why is the government spending so much more money than it's ever spent before. And the third issue is what are we going to do to be sure that we ensure that the future in our country is still to have a country where the people are bigger than the government rather than a country where the government's bigger than the people. In terms of job and spending, you're not going to get private sector job creation headed in the right direction until you get the government under control, both at the regulatory level, the taxing level, and to put some consistency out there so that people don't have to worry about the massive increases in regulations, in utility costs, in healthcare costs, and in taxes. There's no real reason right now for the American people who are job creators, the small businessmen and women of America, to push their money to the center of the table and see if they can lose it. This administration, given the choice of jobs or ideology, has chosen ideology every single time.
If all politics are local, in what ways would your work in Washington affect the people back in Missouri?
Well, it's going to affect them a lot. And the discussions we've been having on jobs, on too much government spending, are quickly followed by people's concerns about the government controlling more of their health care and impacting the system in a negative way. Cap and trade is simply a tax on coal-based utilities. We're in the top 6 states in the country. We're the only state in the country where all of the utility companies have gone together and have made a study and have come back with the result of that study being if we pursued the cap and trade bill that Nancy Pelosi was for, that Harry Reid's for, that the administration's for, it would double our utility bills. And bad tax policies, we're about to see the biggest tax increase in the history of the country occur next year at a time when we probably should be trying to figure out, okay, what do we need to do to encourage investment and encourage some risk-taking rather than further discourage it by raising taxes.
What defines a successful senator to you? Provide examples of who you look to for leadership.
Well, you know, somebody asked me that the other day, just an example of a political leader, and I said Emory Melton, who's a former state senator from Cassville, Missouri. He's been retired for a while, but he read every bill. He always knew more about the information than most of the other people on the floor, and he was always able to stay true to his principles. So knowing what you're doing, knowing what's really at stake, and having those guiding principles, that's why in the time I've been in the Congress, I've always been one of the most conservative members of the House. And I think that's why a lot of these groups that have watched my work in the Congress on spending, on the other issues have lined up behind me, and we've got broad-based support because of that.